Brian Shackle here again for Making Strides Athlete Development. Just wanted to post our second video of our series here from the vault. This time we have some backward skating breakdown. The athlete you're about to see is Jack Sander, who plays for the Prince George Cougers. I'm just going to let you kind of watch the whole video through here once or twice, and then we'll kind of get into it. The one thing you'll probably notice with this video on the starts is this athlete does do 2 crossovers just to generate speed on the start. And we're going to get into that a little bit more detail with some of our future videos, but that's just something to note here. As he gets going through that middle section, the big thing we talk to our athletes about when we work on backward skating is trying to figure out a way to keep the pushing foot in front of the gliding foot. So if I zoom in just on the one video here, what you'll actually notice if you draw an imaginary line kind of right behind the athlete's heels, especially as they cross through the blue line here, the foot that's pushing will always be slightly in front of the foot that's gliding. And Jack does an incredibly good job of this. You can even see there where there's a little bit of an emphasis where the foot comes off the ice. But as you get through here again, the pushing toe is just slightly in front of the gliding toe. Every single one of these pushes is very similar in terms of that. Second thing I want you to kind of notice just from this side video is if you draw an imaginary line or trace a line through the athlete's head here, that head stays very, very controlled and very, very level the whole time. The better control we have of the upper body, the better control we have of the posture, the more consistent a backward skating stride you're going to have. The number one thing we want to make sure here is that we just stay in a very balanced, very controlled position. This might kind of sound a little bit silly to think about, but in terms of backward skating, we really want to think about it as almost forward skating in reverse. So the number one things we talked about with the forward skating stride in that last breakdown was, again, getting into a nice low position. We talked about that 90-degree angle, right? And again, in this picture here, we're at 91. We talked about kind of good posture, which we see as well. We talked about knee over toe. So on the backward stride, we're still going to see that same emphasis where the player is in that good loaded position. And if we just kind of clear that off again, you'll see that knee slightly out in front of the toe. The second thing we talked about with the forward skating was that emphasis on length. So if you watch the athlete push through into extension here, you're going to see a really strong extension where that hip, knee, and ankle all snap into full extension. It's a little harder to see on that other side, but again, if we come back to the right foot, there's a little bit clearer view. You can see everything is fully locked out right through into that snapping of the toe or that ankle plantar flexion that we see at the finish and back underneath us. Again, you can see it a little bit better on that left leg here on that push and then back underneath us. If we just pop over to the other side and watch it from the front view here, we'll just get him going. The one thing we talked about with the forward skating stride was that kind of exaggerated weight shift. One thing that I actually prefer to see with the backward stride is a little bit more control of the side-to-side motion, right? Just because, again, if we start exaggerating and getting an excessive weight shift, it opens up that space for the forward to kind of counter-react and transfer the opposite way against you. So again, we're just looking for really good control of the body on this backward skating video. You're also going to see where that recovery skate, we talked about kind of midline on the other video, or transferring the weight over top of the foot. Now, I mean, we're not going to quite get as full a recovery here. You can see actually for this player, that right foot, the one that's pushing right now, doesn't recover quite as well as the left. So if I just redraw that line kind of right through the middle of the player, you can see kind of the separation on that side. If we come back to the other one, which is pretty impressive that midline stays in the same spot, we're getting a little bit tighter recovery. Watch a couple more. There's the midline. Again, decently good recovery. And then on this side here, our line just a little bit off. So if we redraw it, again, we're seeing that same space. So typically, my expectation for a player would be to try and feel like that recovery skate maybe doesn't quite get all the way back to the nose, but at least kind of gets back to the ear or eye line just to get a little bit of a fuller recovery. Again, you can see we're still creating a very long, powerful push with this just because of how low the player gets. And that push, again, like I said, is slightly in front of or right beside the player. Again, really good control of the upper body as we watch this video. I just zoom back in so we can kind of see both sides together. And if you watch it, you can really see that exaggerated push off where that player is literally, the term I kind of use with our players is feel like you're trying to push yourself backwards down the ice. The number one thing that we kind of associate with backward skating is a C cut. And if you think about a C, once a player gets to this end range on the side, that foot's going to kind of come out, around, and then back in. Right, this backwards portion, anywhere the time the foot gets behind this line I've just drawn, now if that foot's recovering back through here, what we end up doing is we end up actually, if anything, let's get rid of that again, if we end up getting is that recovery foot ends up pushing our body in this direction now. So we actually end up almost fighting ourselves where we're pushing against the direction we're trying to go. Again, you can see here that pushing foot never gets behind. It always stays beside or slightly in front. If you have any questions on this breakdown, feel free to reach out to us. Again, website is www.makingstrides.com, or you can email me, brian@makingstrides.com.